Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of Post-Fades Cheesesteaks. Today, continuing our top 10 series for the best players of 2023, we have interior defensive linemen, so D tackles, nose tackles, joined by my lovely co-host here, Mr. Timothy Mullen. How are we on this list today? Thursday?
Thursday, I believe so.
Thursday?
At least it was when I woke up.
Couple days from the Eagles preseason game, so on Saturday.
Yeah, we're getting closer. We're getting real close. The excitement is building. Training camp is happening. We're starting to come back to earth on some of those training camp superstars that always pop up. But I think we're doing good. Turning our attention to fantasy football right around the corner.
Yeah.
Episode
Actually,
that I don't think is going to have any impact on fantasy football. But
yeah, that's funny you say. I was just watching it was Fantasy Footballers, I think their name is. They were doing like a live draft, and I was just curious to see where people were going. And so, yeah, it's definitely that time of year. And
it's an off topic, and I know it has nothing to do with interior defense linemen.
mm-hmm.
Who's your number one fantasy overall draft pick? One of one.
I mean,
Are you gambling on one of these?
Seems to be healthy.
Running backs?
Seems to be healthy. I'm going CMC.
Oh, okay. All right. You're sticking with not too many mouths in the Shanahan offense? You're not worried about the quarterback?
My yeah, I don't know what's going on in San Fran there, but I don't know. My process is always first or second round. I mean, it depends on how your league is structured, but first, second round, you have to come out with a running back because there's only so many elite running backs. Like if you go receiver first 2 rounds, then you're dealing with like tier 3 running backs at that point, or tier 2 maybe. So I don't know. I mean, you might be able to get like Swift in like the 4th round or something like that, but I don't know.
Hey, I mean, I think I've always a first or second running back guy like yourself. And my last year, I took Josh Jacobs in the 5th round, who obviously, yeah, I mean, he obviously like turned out pretty well. I mean, remember he was playing the Hall of Fame game and we were all shitting bricks about that. They declined his option.
Yeah.
And he exceeded every expectation I had. But it makes you think more of like these draft running backs later, throw a couple darts at the board, see what happens. I think you got to go with the one of one is got to be Justin Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson is coming up to a big extension. I think Cousins is also coming up for an extension. I like both of them in a contract year. They ditched Thielen. We'll see what happens. I think he's the safest and most dominant player in fantasy right now.
I wouldn't take this guy. I probably wouldn't take him top 3, but based on past production and based on, I think he's also in a contract year and has also been like kind of disrespected by his own team. I'm pretty geeked on Austin Eckler. I think I might hop on the early, like maybe 5 or 4, if I pick 5th or 4th, I might do Eckler there.
Yeah, I mean, I like him in the first round. Let's see what happens. I mean,
yeah, I've seen consensus is like CMC, Jefferson, and like Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase have seemed to be like the top 4 rotation there.
But my only thing with Eckler is like you get nothing from the rushing game. Like he's like almost not much. Let's be honest, not much. He just dominates receiving. But they just drafted what's his face out of TCU, Quentin Johnson. Now you got 3 solid wide receivers. I forget who their tight end is. Maybe I forget who's there, but there's a lot of mouths to feed for a guy that really lives off receptions.
Yeah, I mean, but like Nick Chubb's a guy who like rarely gets receptions, and he like was top
completely different
in fantasy. Well,
completely different. You get more rushes than you do receptions per game, and he's a running back. Austin Eckler is also a running back. It's in the name.
Yeah, if you have a
well,
now we're going off topic. Yeah,
we'll say wait. We got to get back to our big uglies. We did last week with the offensive big uglies with Bill, and now we rotate to the defensive.
I'm sure there's some handsome gentlemen in the list.
Okay, that's probably the only time that was ever mentioned on any interior defense lineman rankings. But hey, listen, you're on one. You're starting out hot, so let's kick it off with you. Who do you got your honorable mentions?
All right, so my honorable mentions for this year. One guy. I'll give you a little tease for my list. I'm doing a little flip. I'm putting his teammate in my top 10, but I'm taking him out of my top 10.
Wow.
It's a guy I've vouched for a couple years now. that I usually have
Okay.
a little higher than you or whoever we have on, and it always pained me because he was a giant. But I have Leonard Williams in my honorable mention.
Okay.
I think he's been pretty quietly consistent in his career, especially since getting traded over to the Giants. And it's a good tandem there with the guy I have on my list, who's a little younger, a little more uh, potential, I would say. So he's one. Javon Hargrave, I had just outside top 10. Obviously,
Wow.
former.
Wow. Really? No
Yeah.
hope. No. Well, I guess he's
I
left,
mean,
but
no, not
oh,
even that.
outside the top 10 after this season.
I was just
That's a
looking.
tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at it and I'm like, it's so hard to gauge, especially with a lot of these other players, based on like the line he played for in Philly. And now he's going to San Fran. He's playing on a crazy line there too. So it's like I don't know where to place him. So he's like my 11, 12, I think.
Okay.
Um, and then my other honorable mention that I just took off my 10 before we started. Like I said, I did a little audible. DJ Reader of the Bengals. I think
Ooh.
really good player. I like that line with him and Hendrickson. Um, yeah, he's good. I mean, I think Cincinnati quietly has a pretty solid D line.
Yeah.
I they're getting a little better. I know their defense was kind of the bane of their existence for a little bit there, but slowly getting better. But those are my kept it to three. So Leonard Williams, Javon Hargrave, and DJ Reader. But
I like the DJ Reader one. He's like one of those like players I really like. He doesn't really get any recognition, but if you watch Bengals games, he's out there, he makes plays. Even when he was with the Texans, like
yeah,
he's that like big nose tackle who really doesn't give you too much in the pass rush, but like
mm,
yeah, he'll be in there, he'll be in the quarterback's face, but doesn't get a ton in those numbers.
yeah,
But if you watch him, he's really good. He's fucking big. He is so big. He's a problem in that run game. I swear, every Bengals game I watched, anytime a running back was getting stuffed in the line, it was DJ Reader.
yeah. No,
Um,
That's the thing. Like his numbers aren't replicant of like what he did on the field. I feel like because he only had one
but he
sack,
can
only
play.
one fumble. Yeah, but that's
But
the
he's
thing.
good.
Like
Yeah, I liked him
he's
even when he was coming from
disruptive.
the
I think
Texans.
that's the key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he actually and I solely didn't have him in my number 12 because I had to stick with my boy. So even though my boy's coming off his highest sack, total of his entire career was 6.5, I got him at number 12, going with Vita Vea,
Ah,
the big nose tackle.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's I could be doing a disservice. He has a career high in sacks this year with 6.5. I could
Oh,
be doing
six
him
and a
a
half.
disservice. Okay, I mean, how
For a
much
D
did DJ
tackle,
Reader have?
yeah. Yes.
I mean,
One, that's why he didn't make my list.
Him and DJ Reader literally play the same exact position.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like, if it wasn't for the fact that this list, like our offensive tackles, has just exploded in the last 3 years.
So Vita Vea, if the Bucks had won the Super Bowl, would Vita Vea have made your list?
Uh, probably, it's definitely a real effect. But
Uh,
yeah, so we got my boy Vita. He's out of the top 10, and then my number 11. I'm actually going to take the Billy Greer approach. He
hmm,
signed a massive contract, one of the richest for his position ever,
not the
but
money one.
he did it with a horrible organization. So
Hmm.
I know it's going to be unpopular, but I've got De'Aaron Payne at number 11. And I'll go
Okay.
roll right into this because I'll tell you why I have a number at 11. Because my number 10, I'm going with his teammate. The guy who I don't think gets enough credit because I think he has more to do with De'Aaron Payne's success than maybe De'Aaron Payne does. If you look at the number of double teams that Jonathan Allen has, I think he's like behind. I think it's like Aaron Donald, and that's it that he's behind. His numbers this past year, I mean, him and Payne both made the Pro Bowl, so they
Hmm.
both had very good years. But Jonathan Allen's numbers this year are not as good as Payne, but they're very similar. 7.5 on sacks, 16 on tackles for loss. I think Payne had about like 11.5 sacks and 18 tackles for loss. Of course, Payne's numbers were a little bit better, but Jonathan Allen was the focal point. He was the one getting double teamed. It kind of helps when you're Darren Payne playing in between Jonathan Allen and his double teams and Montez Sweat on the outside for you.
Well, yeah.
So I put Allen ahead of him because I think he had a lot to do with Payne's numbers while also putting up numbers for himself last year. And I think he needs a little more credit. And plus, the Commanders, one more, this is the last thing Daniel Snyder did, I think, as an owner. So I'm going to immediately pencil in this massive extension given out by Snyder as a horrible decision. He will probably fall off a cliff. He will. He will probably be another Albert Hainsworth. It'll be a parting gift from Daniel Snyder one more time.
That's funny. I it's weird when it comes to like defenders. I feel like NFC East rivals, I tend to like I don't hate them as much as I do like offensive players. I don't know. I guess because I've always been a defensive person, but um, I
Interesting. So you're
have
gonna put you got an Eagle. I'm sorry, you got an Eagle coming off their career year and outside the top 10. Now you're gonna tell me that defensive players in the NFC East don't really bother you
so
that much.
so so my
You're
Javon
really you're wearing
Hargrave,
an Eagle shirt, but I don't know if I believe this whole Eagle
my
love.
my Javon Hargrave argument is that I looked at it and I never had him in my top 10, so I couldn't justify throwing him in there, even though he did come off a really good year. I just don't. I don't know. I just looked at like I feel like the other people on my list are like the number one guy on their lines, or like the number one D tackle, number one nose tackle. And I don't. I feel like while Hargrave is really really good, and I loved him as an Eagle, I don't think. I mean, you have Bosa there already, and you have really good linebackers that help support them too. So it's like tough to kind of gauge.
I
I don't
mean,
know. I said he was right there
Darren
11
Payne
or
looks
12. So I mean,
Darren Payne looks good doing it.
I could swap him with my number 10, who I can hop into. But this guy I just kept on here because he really, I had him a little high last year off of a really strong year. But he had a down year. I mean, only 4 sacks this year. Two-time Pro Bowler, but he is the strength of that line in Green Bay. So I have Kenny Clark here, number 10. He was
Okay.
difficult to place because he's like very jumpy. Like his career, like he'll have a really good season and then he'll have like followed with like down year, and then he'll come back with another really good season, and then he'll have another down year. So it's like I didn't know where to put him. Last year I had him up at 3, which I thought was pretty interesting. So
That
dropped him
was
down to
yeah.
10.
That
Dropped him
didn't
down
age
to
well, did it?
10. Yeah, no, I mean, hey, look at Vita Vea. That didn't age well either. So, but
Okay, relax. I don't know if I'm going that far. He is coming off his career high in sacks.
yeah. So I mean, we'll see. But I mean, still had 10 QB hits. Still had got the pressures. His tackles were up actually. Um, Tackles for loss was about the same as last year, but the sacks weren't there, and I think overall the Green Bay defense was just super disappointing last year. I mean, even Jari Alexander, who was one of my probably top 3 corners in the league, had a bit of a down year.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it makes sense. I looking back at my list last year, like I said, this list is just dominated by young guys. I have 4 defense tackles in my top 10 from 2019 first round alone.
man,
I don't know about you, but like this is a young like half
I'll
of
have
my
to
top
look.
10 list
I
comes
don't know off the top of my
from the
head.
first round of one draft class. I looking like last year, like I don't have Clark in my list, but he had him 5 last year. I don't have Grady Jarrett in my list. He was 7 last year. He's a tough one because that
Yeah,
Atlanta Falcons defense
yeah,
sucks so much, and I honestly don't think he's a bad player. I think he's still a top 10 guy,
he
but that
is.
defense is so bad that he can't do anything. He can't get sacks because the secondary's ass. He can't stop him in the run because there's no one on that defense line that is worth anything. It's tough. And then Villa, who I had at 9, he's slipped up a little bit, but again, career year of sacks, so maybe the list just got tougher.
I Yeah, that I had a tough time with So yeah, Vita Vea was on my list last year at 9. He didn't make it. Leonard Williams was on my list last year. He didn't make it. Grady Jarrett was on my list last year, and he didn't make it. So Grady Jarrett is a really good. He's still like kind of young, but like you said, it's just hard to. Falcons did get
Defense is
better.
terrible.
They did get better though this
They couldn't get
offseason.
it worse. They couldn't get it worse.
That okay, that is valid. So
But I'll tell you, so I'll roll into my number 10 because a guy we've actually touched. Oh, I'm sorry, my number
number
9. A
9,
guy we've
yeah.
touched on already. I went with Gravedigger here. I went with Hardgrave at number 9,
So yeah,
and
yeah, I'm cool with that. I think it's deserving. So
I don't discredit what you're saying. I agree that I almost maybe it's the bitter Eagles fan of me that he signed to our conference rival now, who we're
mm,
probably going to see pretty deep in the playoffs again. But he was kind of disappointing that when he first got here as a free agent, and then he played really well, but that was when Reddick was there, brand new defense, brand new secondary, more time. But the other part of this, like I didn't want to push him up too high, but I had to respect how good he was last year. This tells you how young this top 10 list is. Javon Hargrave did not make a Pro Bowl this year with 11 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. It was a very good year, but if you look at the year before that, 2021, when he did get a Pro Bowl, he had 7.5 sacks and
Yeah.
he had 9 tackles for loss. So this guy stats were literally better than his Pro Bowl year, but he still didn't make it. That's
Yeah.
how good this NFC has as defense tackle position looks. They've just improved so much. They're such a young group, but Hargrave, I think he was a little inflated with the Eagles' defensive line, but he's going into another incredible defense line that'll probably inflate his numbers. So I think he'll be fine next year. But I went with Hargrave at 9.
Yeah, I
A little
mean,
bitter.
we've talked about how like our methods for ranking players a couple times, but like mine is the 3 tiers where it's like body of work in your career, what did you do last year, and then what are you going to do this year, prediction, So it's
Excuse
like,
me. I feel like I've heard that before. Take away the body of the work, where you praise 10-year veterans that won their offensive rookie year, a decade ago.
well, it's
I'm more
important.
about building the
It's
team
important.
around them. Where are they when I'm building my team?
Yeah, well, I don't know. My mic's invisible. That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I like Hargrave, but like you said, we signed him to a huge contract. He was like good. I think I can't remember. It was either the first year we had him or the second year. One of the years he was
First year was
down.
so disappointing.
Yeah, that's
First
what it
year was so
was.
disappointing. I
And then
mean,
we
the
beefed
second
up
year,
the
like I said, he
defense, and
was.
he started playing a lot better. And
That's
so,
why.
but
That's why he's listen. He's not high on the top 10, but he's in the top 10.
but I would argue you take like if this was like purely interior defensive lineman who rushed the passer, he would be top 3. I'd argue
I
he's up there
mean,
with Aaron
sure.
Donald with like
Well,
rushing the
that,
quarterback.
yeah, but you understand, like he doesn't do anything in the run game. We had the
That's what I
worst
mean.
rush defense
Yeah.
last year, and Jordan Davis missed some time, but Hargrave did not. We had to go bring in Sue and Linval Jones because he didn't play the run. And, it helps to be a great pass rushing D tackle when you play aside, Hassan Reddick, who's having a defensive player of
Well,
the year.
he
Brandon
was
Graham, I've got 2 number 1 cornerbacks out there with Barry and Slay. It's, it's a lot easier to do what he wanted to do.
well, I mean, like you said, it's he used basically a defensive end playing D tackle because they're like just
Yeah.
rush the quarterback and then we'll figure out how to stop the run. So
Hey, yeah, he was
not
very
not
good in
not
that role too.
not a huge knock. It's just like you like a little more
He's
balance with
good in his
your
role.
players. Yeah.
He's good in his role, but to be fair to him, give him credit. Like he's going to play with Nick Bosa, Eric
I'm
Armstead,
sure he'll have 10
and
plus
in that.
sacks again. Yeah.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, because he's in a good situation to just pass rush.
He went from the number 1 defensive line to the number 2 defensive line. No biggie.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw behind you. They'll take care of any rushing lanes you give up.
casuals.
Yeah.
All right.
All
So
right, you're number 9.
my number 9, which I'm very curious to see where he falls in your list because I know you're usually high on some of the a bit younger guys, but he is, I just looked it up, part of that 2019 draft class that you were talking
Oh,
about.
look at that! See, what did I tell you?
Yeah, so my number 9 had he was number 1 in solo tackles for his position, number 1 in assists, and had 5 sacks. So I have Christian Wilkins here at number 9.
Wow, really? Can I?
Yeah,
Can
he
I?
was
I'll let you continue the wraparound. I also have Christian Wilkins, but he's at
oh,
number 8 for me. But he's
number 8.
coming up.
Okay,
But
okay, cool.
continue.
Yeah, I started off. I actually had him a lot higher, and then I was kind of evaluating stats. Some of the other players I was pushing into this list, and I kept sliding him back a little bit.
Hmm.
I think he's gonna have a really great year though, because I mean, you got Nick Chubb, who hopefully can get his shit together and play like he's supposed to.
Bradley
Um,
Chubb.
or yeah, Bradley Chubb. I mean, Nick Chubb could probably play DN. You never know.
That's true. That's true.
I'm blanking on his name now. They have the other younger edge rusher,
Jalen Phillips.
Jalen Phillips, who just missed. I know he
Yeah,
just missed my edge
he
rankings. I don't
looks
know if he
good
made
though.
yours.
He
He
looks
does,
very
yeah.
good.
So yeah, I think it's only going to get up for Christian Wilkins. I mean, come from that Clemson defense, so it's a nice pedigree. But yeah, I think he's going to continue to produce and be a strength. The Dolphins quietly. I mean, once Ramsey gets healthy again, quietly have a pretty nice squad there on defense, and probably the
That's
fastest
true.
offense in the league. So Dolphins could make noise again. We'll see.
I like the team the way it's constructed. But yeah,
Yeah,
I have Wilkins at 8. You know what? He is my guy right now who is a top 5 player next year.
I could
You
see
know,
it. Yeah,
he's my D tackle that where he is right now, he's going to be much higher next year. Part of the reason is, yeah, he's going to play with Bradley Chubb for a full season, and
yeah,
Jalen
not Nick
Phillips is
Chubb.
another year in the league. Um, Jalen Ramsey, when he gets healthy, is going to team up with Xavier Howard, making an incredible secondary. But he's one of my now that there's no Eagles on this list because Hargrave pieced us. He's one of my favorite players on this list. He's got a big
Okay.
personality. I think he's going to make life easy for Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, but I think he's also going to get his chances. I love him in that defense. I think he's on the rise.
Hmm.
16 tackles for loss last year, which was eighth in the NFL, regardless of position. He's going to get a lot more than that when there's, those two bookends coming at the quarterback. But yeah, he's my guy, my top 5 guy next year.
Okay. My, where are we at? My number 8. Um, he's a guy I feel like jumps around my list quite a bit. I'm trying to see. Let's see. The first year we did this, I had him at 7. Then in
Okay.
2021, he jumped up to number 3. And then
Okay.
last year he dropped to 5th. So, I mean, what do I have him now?
Top 10
8.
guy.
Yeah, he's a top 10 guy. At number 8 here, he's been consistent since he joined this new team a couple years ago. He was also in the same draft class as
Oh,
Kenny Clark, 2016. Two-time Pro Bowl, one-time All Pro at 6'7", 295. He's basically the Myles Garrett of D tackles. It's a freak of nature types. But DeForest Buckner here, I have at number 8.
can I
Maybe a
just say,
little okay.
this is twice now. This is
Oh, you
twice
got him
now
at
on the
7.
wraparound. You got me again. I like what
Okay,
we're thinking,
so
but go on.
similar, yeah, similar thought. I mean, it's not really a knock on him, but I feel like we've already seen his peak, right? And his peak is very good, but I haven't seen him get like better since he's gotten to this level. Um, but he's been super good for Indianapolis, and I thought when he left San Fran, or well, he got traded, but when he left San Fran, that he was going to have a little bit of a drop, and he's been good for them, Last year had
Yeah,
8 sacks, not a career high, but still pretty consistent. He's always good for
definitely not bad.
70 some tackles, which is good for a D tackle.
Yeah,
And he's been playing, last 2 years, he's played in 17 games each year. So staying healthy. I mean, his whole career, he's missed less than, let me, if I can do math correctly, 15. So yeah, he's played almost his entire seasons, his whole career. So super reliable, good player, and definitely top 10. It's just like depends on where you want to have him fall. But number 8 for me, and
I
he's number
mean,
7 for you. So go ahead and
yeah, for
elaborate.
Buckner, I got him at 7. I think he's one of those veterans. I think we touched on it when we said Kenny Clark and Jarrett, but he was one of those veterans that played on a terrible team last year. He
Hmm.
was pretty good though. I mean, if you look at his numbers, like you said, he's been a top 5 talent before. If you look at his numbers, the 8 sacks is like, top 3 in his career.
Yeah,
He had the most combined tackles in a season this year. The 44, is second behind his 45 in a career, in a
two
year.
two forced fumbles.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like the tackles for loss was 11, which was the second most of his entire career,
Yeah.
in a season. He definitely was out there. Same with quarterback hits with 22. Like he made his presence felt. I think he gets hurt by, just being on a terrible team that once, Leonard got hurt, there wasn't much around him, but
Yeah.
he still went out there. He produced. Don't get me wrong, when they're, losing by him, quite a bit each game, I'd imagine it's pretty hard to get a sack or, quarterback pressure when they're just running and killing the clock. But he still got his numbers. Still a good player. I'd like to see him if the team got a little bit better. But yeah, still a good player. So that's why I put him at 7.
Yeah. I forgot he went to Oregon for college, but I do remember he was a top 10 pick in 2016.
That's true.
So
That's true.
that's when San Fran built that D line up. But all right,
Hey,
so
they were onto something there. Almost won them a Super Bowl.
So he was your 7. So going into my 7, a guy that you previously mentioned, who I think I'm a little higher on, Jonathan Allen here at number 7. I think,
Okay.
I mean, 6'3", 300 pounds, ran a sub 5 40-yard dash. I mean, he's athletic for his size. Um, it's a shame. I mean, not a shame because we don't want them to succeed, but Commanders are a bit of a cesspool right now. Not really sure what's
right
going
now.
on. Well, they've been
They've been a
cesspool for a
cesspool
while.
for
I mean, their
quite some
stadium is
time.
also a cesspool.
The
Um,
whole a whole organization, top to bottom. Well, I guess not top anymore. I mean, we'll see what
one
happens.
of
But
the I
yeah,
actually
that
like not to go completely off topic, but one of my favorite like side stories that's been going on since they got bought or like sold or whatever is
yeah.
that now a bunch of the fans are saying, you know what? Let's change the name back to the football team after they were like, this is the worst name I've ever heard. Now they're all like, you know what, it was kind of cool, and I hate the Commanders name. So I think that's so funny.
Well,
I didn't mind it. I thought Washington football team was kind of like it sounded like old school, like had a nice ring to it, but it is
no,
a
it
little
was so
silly.
stupid.
It
It
is a
was
little
so
silly.
stupid. But it's just off like the amount of money they make off of just logo and team name, like football team. That's the most boring thing in the world.
Anyway, so had him at number 8 last year, so I'll bump him up one spot. Back to back years, making the Pro Bowl. Um, excuse me, 16 tackles for loss this year. I mean, he set career highs and everything but QB hits, well, and sacks, but career high in tackles for loss, just general pass rushing, 7.5 sacks, 17 QB hits. Like I said, just really good, really consistent. And he's stayed relatively healthy too. Hasn't missed games. Um, he's got some nice. His one teammate, like you mentioned earlier, he's got a nice teammate there on the line with him. And if Chase Young ever figures it out and he comes back and plays, that's a pretty gross. That's a top five
That's
talent
true.
line right there on defense. So
Well, you got to be fair. They have 4 first round picks on that defense of and let's be honest, the one that we thought the safest and like the most dominant, who would be the best, is probably the worst one right now. Like Chase Young is probably the fourth best on that line.
yeah, and you got Montez Sweat as well. So
It's kind of crazy. Like he was the safest one. He was the one they were going to build around. They just had all these other incredible defense linemen with him, and I mean injuries and all that. But he is surprisingly by far the worst on that line, mostly because the
yeah,
other guys have succeeded so much.
who would have thought? But yeah, I mean, can't go wrong drafting an Alabama defender, and he's been uh pretty damn good. I would say. Was he also? No, he was 2017. No, he's a little older than I thought.
Yeah,
Um,
he's been around the block.
but yeah, he's been good for them, and I think he's quietly been one of the more dominant D tackles in the league. So Jonathan Allen, number
Fair
7.
enough. All right, well, my number 6, I'm going to go with a guy I know for a fact you do not have ranked, probably in your top 10. Now that we're at where we're at, and it's just
Okay.
mind blowing. But you've disrespected him so much before, so I'm not surprised you're going to do it again now. But talk about a guy that's coming off a Pro Bowl year, double digit sacks, 10 and a half,
Okay.
23 quarterback hits, 14 tackles for loss. He did it while the best player on their team, on their defense, was out, missed a couple games, still managed to step up. Guy who's getting better each year as he gets older. I'm going with Cam Hayward from the Steelers.
You said you don't think he's on my list.
I don't know.
Well, that's funny because he's actually number 6 on my list.
Wow, really? Wow, look at you. I knew, what? I knew we were getting to that safe spot. I was like, there's
uh,
absolutely no way he put him in the top
no,
five.
I
Because
no,
you've
I
disrespected him before, but I'm glad you're finally coming
he's
around to it.
no, he's been on my list. He was number he was let's see. He was number 6 last year, and the year before that he was
I
number
mean, that
7.
was coming off, yeah, the number 6, he was coming off one of the best years of his
He's
life, and he
been
only moved up
I do
one
remember
spot.
you gave me shit for that. I remember that. So
I mean, it was deserved. I had him at number 2 last year.
I mean,
But
I was playing the flurry card. I was like, well, he's getting older or something. He's got to eventually fall off the cliff. But
when does that ever come true for you?
for
I
me, I
don't think that's
mean,
ever worked out for you. To put it, but look at this guy
34
is the
now though.
definition of a late bloomer. The first 6 years of his career, also, sidebar, never misses games. He had one year in
Oh,
2016 where he only
yeah,
played 7 games, never misses
he's an
time.
old school
So
player for sure.
the first 6 years of his career, no Pro Bowls, no All Pros. The second half of the of his 12-year career, the last 6 years, 3 All Pros, 6-time Pro Bowler. Like this guy is just incredible. Like I could have been disrespecting him because if you look at his numbers, he had an All Pro season last year. That's why you disrespecting was insane. He had more sacks this year. He had
Yes,
more
yeah.
quarterback hits this year, and he had only one less tackle for loss. Insane. I
Well, he
mean,
didn't have TJ Watt
what he's
stealing his
doing is
sacks, but
I mean, he didn't have TJ Watt generating, wide open lanes.
That was
But
funny.
yeah, I'd
I
love to
was
hear you eat your words, so I'll let you have the floor now.
well, I was just about to look at pull up some of the stats again, and I was like looking, I was like 5'11", 192 pounds, and I was like, oh no, that's Casey Hayward, not Cameron Hayward. But
Get it
no,
together. The
Cam
disrespect.
Hayward going in at 6'5", 295. Like you said, he's centering he was drafted in 2011, so it's like his 12th, 13th year.
13th. Yeah.
6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All Pro.
All in the last 6 years.
And yeah, all in the yeah,
He's getting
and
better,
it
man.
started
He's getting better.
in 2017 when he was he didn't win, but he was in the running for a comeback player of the year. And made it first team All Pro and Pro Bowl. And then like you said, after that
It's
he's made
kind
a
of
Pro
amazing.
Bowl 5 straight years since that. 6 straight years.
The difference between, like, I forget what his injury in 2016 was. I don't know if you remember, but
He
after
only played
that
7
injury,
games
like,
though. Yeah.
his injury bounce back, like, he was insane. Like, did they just like put a robotic arm or Achilles or something inside of him? Because he was not the same player afterwards. He was so good. Now it helps. I think TJ Watt entered the league right around that same time, and of course that helps.
Yeah.
But you don't want to, you can't ignore it at the same time. So, um,
You want to know
shall we
a quick
go
fun
ahead?
fact
Yeah,
about Cam Hayward? So what team does he play for?
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know where he was born?
Um, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, PA.
Well,
I did not know that, but that's kind of cool.
there you go. Childhood team.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, there's your respect. You thought I wasn't gonna have
Good.
on my list. That's kind of crazy, but I'm not that dumb.
Uh, all right. So,
Number 5.
my number five. This is another guy from that 2019 draft class I've already touched on.
Okay.
Young guy who
Oh yeah, for
drafted really
2019.
high.
Yeah.
He was the first guy. He was the first D tackle drafted that year. I think he was number 3 overall, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Took him a little bit of time to get it together, but I can vividly remember this guy like doing interviews or on draft night, and he had braces. That puts you in perspective of how young he was coming into the league.
Interesting.
Because
Okay.
I
Okay.
I think he's only 24 or 25. I think he's 25 entering his 5th season.
Hmm.
But he's, that's it's still pretty good. But he started to figure it out. The first couple of years, he was clearly struggling, working to find his footing. This year, he kicked the door down and let us all know that he's here. 12 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 28 quarterback hits. He was part of that renaissance for this entire team. All pro this year. I got Quentin Williams coming out from the Jets.
Okay. He is definitely on my list. I don't have him at 5, but he's coming up shortly. Yeah, I like it. Like you said, it's crazy the turnaround. He went from being crazy high draft pick. Let's see,
Yeah, 3 overall.
third overall, 2019
If you
from
consider
Alabama.
I have 3 other guys from that draft class above him. Or no, I'm sorry, in the top 10. 2 of them I have above him. It's kind of they come to actually. You know what? Look at this. I have 3 in a row from 3, 4, 5. Crazy.
Yeah, I yeah, I'll go into his numbers when I bring him up. But yeah, I just think from a guy that I just remember his draft when he got drafted, his like interview, he sneezed. Nobody said bless you, and he said bless you to himself, and then said thank you to himself. I was like,
He
this
was like a
guy's
kid. He had braces on while he was doing it.
he did have braces. He might still have them on. I don't know. But
No. If he still has them on, he needs to start using those big bucks he got from his contract extension and get a new dentist.
yeah, true. But yeah, a nice progression for him. I have a player, at my number 5, kind of similar, also 2019, also
Yeah.
first round, but he kind of just came on the scene last year, so that's why I have, and his stats weren't as good as Quinn Williams, so I have him just a spot below. But I have Mr. Dexter Lawrence, another NFC East
Hmm.
player from the Giants, on my list. So made the Pro Bowl this year, 7.5 sacks, 68 combined tackles, 28 QB hits, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So I played 16 games, so 2 forced fumbles as well. I think him and Lawrence or a good combo there, a D tackle, and obviously they got the hell was his name, Thibodeau, however you say his name, coming off the
Yeah.
edge. So they quietly have a nice little front there in New York. Secondary is definitely a huge question mark, but I think their line is definitely well improved, both offense and defense. But yeah, Dexter Lawrence, I think since you said you had a couple of 2019 players, he's probably on your list coming up. But
I
I think he's
actually have
a
him
good progression for him.
right here.
All right.
It's weird. We've gotten that wraparound down a couple
Well,
times.
so my number
So,
4 is Quentin Williams. So, but go into Dexter
okay,
Lawrence.
that makes sense. All right, well then here, I'll cut it short because I'll basically put it down to the reason why I had him over the other.
Sure.
They both, honestly, it took them both. This was easily the best year of both their careers.
Correct.
But the thing is, Quentin Williams is like a pass rusher. He doesn't give you much in the run defense.
Okay.
Derek Lawrence is an incredible run defender and always has been, who just so happened to have the best pass rush year of his entire career. 7.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, which is the most in his career. Both of those numbers, plus the 28 quarterback hits, which is more than double his best in any season before. If you factor in this as a elite run defender, Derek Lawrence is like incredible. That's why I bumped him up ahead of Quentin Williams. They're in there. They're in the same conversation. Obviously, since we have them 4 and 5, but that's what brought him over the edge on Williams.
Yeah, I weird that I left the former Eagle off the list, but had two rival teams on. But I looked at the stats, and I mean,
listen. That's what I said, but whatever.
their stats are fairly similar this year. I think Quentin Williams has had a little more consistency in his prior 3 years than Dexter Lawrence did. I think Dexter Lawrence was a little weaker in his first 3 years. But I gave a nod to the guy who made the All Pro team, was a Pro Bowler, and came I believe 7th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. So slight nod, slight nod to him. So, but yeah, they're like a coin flip. They're very much in the same.
You're splitting
vein.
hairs.
Yeah,
you're splitting hairs.
Yeah. So roll into your number 3, which so I'm actually shocked by this. I thought I was going to be really high on this guy, who you probably have a 3. But
I have to think we have the same exact top 3, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't in the same exact order. So does that give us the same exact top 5 minus what sounds like it's just a switch up on Quentin Williams and Dexter Lawrence?
I mean, pretty much the same list besides like 10 and 9, it seemed like. But
everyone that comes here to watch us argue and banter and ruin each other.
The fans.
Oh, that's tough. All right, well, I'll get right into it. So this guy has been on a rocket ship since he's entered the league, just getting better and better and better. Honestly, again, he plays on a terrible team. And it's a tough situation for him because they do not rush the passer very well or do anything defensively very well or really anything very well at all. But 7.5 sacks last year, 9 tackles for loss, 14 quarterback hits. Won't blow you away, but if you factor in, he was the best and the only player to care about. Yeah, the only player on that defense to even recognize. That's the fact that he put up numbers in general is impressive, considering he did it the year before too. Keeping it up, but sniffing that elite tier, because I don't know about you, but our top 2 guys I think are in a tier that is a mile higher than the rest of them. No offense to Jeffrey Simmons, who I have at number 3, but I don't think he's very close to 1 or 2. Him, Lawrence, and Williams all right there in tier 2. I think one of them could jump up. The reason I have Simmons at 3 is because I think he's the most likely to jump up in that tier 1, but as it is, he's really not that close.
I'm genuinely shocked. I also have Jeffrey Simmons at number 3 here. I did not think you were going to have him this high. I really thought, because I was looking at a lot of lists, and not a lot of lists had him top 5. And I was just like, I don't know what they're thinking. I think he's got so much talent, so much potential.
You got to understand, I had him at number 4 last year. Like, I was no sleepy giant here.
I also had him at number 4 last year.
It's not like either of us were sleeping on it. We both knew how good he was. If anything, I moved Cam Hayward down from the number 2 spot to 6. And, mostly because I had just guys jumping in front of him. I could have made an argument for Cam Hayward over Simmons.
Somebody had him. Yeah, PFF has him at number 10. I'm just like, 10? What are y'all doing?
You watch a game with his red sleeve, he sticks out. He is so good, and he's so big.
It's funny. You'd think I'm like a Titans fan because I always have him and Kevin Byard in my top five without a doubt. So,
It's true.
but yeah, no, I mean, he's got that. Like, I think with Quinn Williams and Dexter Lawrence, you see the talent. They're dominant, but like, I don't know, something about like Simmons is just like scary to me. Like, I don't know how
He's
to
a
describe
beast.
it, but yeah, I just think he's got a bit of a higher ceiling than them. And like you said, another 2019. So I had three. I think so. Did you then? Three 2019 drafted players in a row. I don't know what
Yeah,
Simmons
yeah.
was around.
It
Oh, he
was in
was
2019.
16. Yeah, he was.
Or I'm sorry, yes, he was. I had him, Lawrence, Williams, and Wilkins as my 2019 quartet.
Oh, I had
But
Wilkins too. Yeah.
one guy who didn't wasn't part of the 2019 draft class, but he's on that elite tier. I think the reason now we can confidently say there is an elite tier
Hmm.
is that someone is starting to catch up with Aaron Donald. I mean, he's not, I think we can easily say like Aaron Donald's still number one. I don't know if you want to go out on the limb, but I have a feeling since me and you both had Devontae Adams at number one again, after Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson had insane
We
years
are a
to
little
knock him
more
off.
intelligent than the
Where
regulars.
listen, I don't just live off of knee-jerk reactions. I don't just because Chris Jones went and won a Super Bowl, which regardless of what you say, Dakota,
That's
does affect
your
these rankings.
that's your that's your standard.
And like the fact that he did that and had 15 and a half sacks, you probably think, oh, he's right there.
Probably,
Why
I mean,
not?
arguably a career year for him. Career high in pressures too.
I mean, you could say that, but wildly enough, he had 15 and a half sacks before. Didn't even make a Pro Bowl. He was an All Pro this year and Pro Bowl. Didn't get a Pro Bowl nod for 15 and a half sacks. Kind of
That's
wild.
weird.
But yeah, he was incredible. He had more tackles for loss. Wow, dude, his 2018 season, 19
Just
tackles for loss, 15 and a half sacks.
are you just looking at
He
the
had
stats now?
29 quarterback hits. Did you realize that his 2018 season was better than this season
I'm gonna tell
that
you.
he just had?
So yes, my number two is also Chris Jones, which means my number one is Aaron Donald. But if Aaron Donald wasn't Aaron Donald and like by far the best player at his position for like a decade, then I could see you putting Jones at number one, but I I just couldn't do it. Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald, so but yeah, Chris Jones, I
It's
mean,
true.
four-time Pro Bowler for only one All Pro, which is just
Yeah,
crazy.
this past season.
Just
It's wild,
crazy.
dude. Look at his 2018 season. Dude, he had more tackles for loss, the same amount of sacks, and the same amount of quarterback hits. Didn't even get a Pro Bowl. It's wild.
So
You know what
I
that
would
is? Do you know
say
what that is? You know what that is? I don't mean to cut you off. You know what that is? The
what?
effect of D Ford. That's the
Yeah.
D Ford
The D
effect.
you hate D Ford.
Dude, he's literally like, what is the difference between this year and 2018 looking at his numbers? Absolutely nothing except he won a Super Bowl and D Ford cost them a chip to the Super Bowl. That's about it.
I
But
will say
yeah,
it's
go
I
on.
mean he's came in 2016 is when he was drafted, second round. But I would say for a good while it was like probably since he got drafted. Well, he had a little bit of time to come up. So let's say 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019. I'd argue the top three was between Donald, him, and Fletcher Cox, and he's been able to
Cam Hayward, but
maintain
yeah.
this level of well, Cox is older, so he kind of fallen off a bit
Okay.
here, but
I mean, yeah, but he's in the conversation. But yeah, I agree. Actually, Cox the first 6 years of his career, compared to Chris Hayward's or Cam Hayward's second six half of the year, I think you flip flop. But yeah,
sure,
no, I do agree with where you're going with this.
yeah, but I mean, if you want to make the argument, Chris Jones right now is better because Donald did have a bit of a down year. If you're going based
No,
off just last year, sure, because
no,
I mean Chris
no,
Jones was over, he was 10, Donald was 11 on the top 100, so players seem
absolutely
to
not.
have some think so, but yeah, I don't think until he retires or like just doesn't do anything this year, like he's going to be number one. So it's like Mahomes. Mahomes
He,
is not going to be number one until he retires. So
yeah, I mean, because sure, I mean, he had a better year than Donald this past season, but who do you think's gonna have a better year next year? Kind of leaning towards Aaron Donald, especially. I mean, listen, Chris Jones and Zach Martin, they picked the right time to hold out. They're both elite. They're older, but they're both elite, and their position just got paid. There's a lot of guys in their position that just got paid a lot of money. And if you're Chris Jones, you probably look back and think, dude, there's like four guys alone this offseason that are now getting paid more than me. Let's go to the table.
Yeah. Let me see something real quick. I'm trying to figure out what this award is. But I went from uh Chris Jones's page to Aaron Donald's page, and it's 9-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ, Hall of Fame All 2010s team, 3-time AP
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, 2014 AP Defensive Player, like Rookie of the Year in 2014. Like, he's a demon. He's so good.
He's untouchable. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The team sucks.
I mean,
I think that's more
last
than it.
year he played 11 games, 5 sacks, 49 tackles. So like, but he's done with the Pro Bowl. I mean, probably on name alone, but
I mean, he didn't have a bad year. It's not like he just stopped, playing football at a high level.
did you did
It's
you
just,
did you know that he's never he was a rookie in 2014. He's never
yeah.
missed the Pro Bowl. He's been in the Pro Bowl since he got into the league.
I
That's
mean,
crazy. And he's won AP player of the he's been an AP defender, first or second team since well, not his rookie year, but the years after that, and then last year was the first time he missed it.
I mean,
AP
he
first
missed
team.
6 games this year. Like that's you say 5 sacks and 10 tackles lost, but he also missed 6 games.
I've
This was the first
also
or 7 games. I'm sorry, or 6 games. This is the only time he's really ever missed time in his career. It's just the team was terrible. He missed time. It was bound for a down year.
yeah, so I like using profootballreference.com because they lay out all the stats right in front of you. And I've never of all the players we've done in these rankings, I've never seen one. So they have an awards column. I've never
Yeah.
seen one where they have they have a player of the year like award nomination in every single year that they've played besides last year. He's been in the running one. He was player of the year, then second, then fourth, then back to back years he won. Then he was fifth. Then he won again, and then he came in third. I'm like
I mean,
4-time defensive player of the year. That's crazy.
he was a 5-time, or no, I'm
Oof.
sorry.
4-time defensive player of the year
He's a 7-time All Pro.
and a 7-time All Pro.
7 years in a row.
Yep.
I mean, he's a walk-in first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean,
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
he's number one as long as he wants to. If the Rams again only win 3 games and he sits out 6 games, he's still number one. Let's be honest. If it, if I'm playing
Yeah.
football tomorrow, he's my D tackle. And I
Oh
want to throw
yeah.
something out to you before we move on to Chris Jones and I finish slobbing off of Aaron Donald.
One way to put it.
Now, I found a curious comparison between two athletes that I want to gauge your, shock.
Okay.
So, athlete A is Chris Jones, who is 6'6" and 298.
Okay.
Athlete B is 6'6" and 284.
Okay.
Now, athlete B is an NBA player,
Okay. 6'2".
arms the size of tree trunks.
Is it Braun?
No, Zion Williamson.
Oh, Zion.
Is it shocking to you to see that Zion and Chris
He's
Jones are
248.
10 284?
He's 284. Jesus
That's what I mean. Like,
Christ.
dude, Zion Williamson is 10 pounds lighter. They're the same exact height, and he's 10
Bro,
pounds
ever,
lighter than
ever
Chris
since he's been
Jones.
eating all that Cajun food out in New Orleans.
Dude, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, he's a big boy. 284. Like, he is,
284. There's no way. I don't
dude,
believe you.
he's 15 pounds lighter than Chris Jones. They're the same exact height, which I find is mind-boggling because Chris Jones is like one of the biggest NFL players I can ever think of. There's DeForest Buckner, but like when you factor in Chris Jones is like just built and bigger. I think Buckner's more like, long and got the length, evenly distributes his like, weight. He's probably not as heavy. Dude is big. But
Six
Zion's right there.
six 248. How much was Shaq? Was probably 300, right?
I mean, sure, but he was also 7 feet tall.
Yeah, 7'1", 325. But he
Yeah, you got to
also
factor in
Zion's also not a center, so
Chris
power
Jones and
forward.
Zion Williamson are pretty much the same exact size.
That's crazy.
It is wild.
Damn. All right. Yeah, I don't really have I mean, like you said, Chris Jones won a Super Bowl, so obviously he had to be top two. Um,
Jason Hayward effect.
no, he's been good. Like you kind of lay out his stats already. He's been really good for I mean, it's Andy Reid's team. He's going to have good players on the D line and good players on the offensive line. It's not surprising. But he's been really good for them. Great leader too. Very selfless player. Um,
Yeah,
good for the young guys. But I have a question for you then. So
go ahead.
someone you didn't name in your honorable mentions, but is um maybe newer to the league, like been in the league like 3-4 years maybe max. Like, do you have any players that you think could jump up into top 10 next year?
Well, I mean, the only reason I didn't put him as a honorable mention because I didn't want to be a homeboy. But I seriously mean Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter could both find this top 10 list. I'd be shocked if one of them isn't in this top 10 list
I thought
next
about
year.
I thought about
They play,
pulling.
but they play two different positions completely. Jordan Davis is going to be a menace when it comes to stopping that run, and Jalen Carter might be I don't want to throw his name around like nothing, but he's got that pass rush ability on the inside with that quick feet and power. He could be an Aaron Donald type kind of player. I mean, he's not Aaron Donald. No one is. We'll never see Aaron Donald again. But his game, I think, molds into Aaron Donald. But non-Eagle, I like Derek Brown a lot too. The guy who I
That
liked coming
was
out of
damn.
college,
That was mine. Yeah.
I liked him coming out of college, and I really thought he'd be good. And he took a little bit, didn't really find it right away. Took a little time, but the team, I like Burns. I like him. I like
I love
what's
Brian
his face, the
Burns.
dude in the secondary. There's talent there. I think he's
Oh,
gonna get
JC
better.
Horn.
So those are my yeah, Horn and
Yeah, they
the
have some
Michigan
really
State
good young
safety.
talent in Carolina. Um, yeah, mine was also gonna be Derek Brown, but you stole my thunder. But yeah, I
What I
think
do?
I think he's due for like a breakout year, kind of like how Quinton Williams, it took him, three years to kind of get situated. I think this is gonna be his fourth year now, Derek Brown. So that's when Dexter Lawrence got really good. Quinton Williams got really good. I think Derek Brown's gonna find his stride. Playing on, like you said, Brian Burns, phenomenal edge rusher. Um, yeah, and I will say, I debated pulling the whole, I guess you would call it the Kyle Pitts card, where you have a rookie who hasn't even played an NFL snap, and you're like, you know what, he's top 10 already. Or like Bijan Robinson, a lot of people were throwing in top 10s already. I thought about Jalen Carter. I think he's gonna be all of what
He's gonna be a
Fletcher Cox
problem.
was, if not better.
I think
So
he's dude. He's got the he reminds me of like I said Donald, but to not a lesser degree of Donald, but more in the Grady Jarrett, Geno Atkins role. Like I think he's gonna be a
I
problem
could.
as a
The Geno
pass
Atkins
rusher.
is a good comparison. Yeah,
He has that pass rush game down. So if you factor in, he was the best player on that Georgia defense, not last year, but the year before that. He was the
mm,
best player 2 years ago when they won their first championship.
yeah.
He's I'm excited to see him.
It was funny. I had something on YouTube I was watching, and it auto, the video ended, so it went on to like some recommended video, and it was like a recap of ESPN's breakdown of the draft, or like it was the live draft when it was happening this year, and I saw on they were like pick number 3, and it was like Mel's big board was going across the screen, and it was like number 1 Jalen Carter, number 5 Nolan Smith, and I was just like, yeah, Eagles got so lucky, both those
Out of the park.
players. Oof.
I'm excited to see. But mostly because they play two different positions.
Yeah.
Jordan Davis, I think is going to be a terror. The Vita Vea, DJ Reader, but I think he's
Mm-hmm.
got more
Big
like to his
boy.
game, run stuffing problem. And then Jalen Carter's bringing the pass rush. And you know what I like is they're going to split reps with Fletcher Cox, who has been in the league for a while, and he's what made him so good is he did both those roles really well.
I
He
think
was a nose. He's
Cox
big enough
coming
to stop the
off the
run, but can pass
bench.
rush.
If Cox is coming
Oh
off the
yeah,
bench, I think he'll play a lot better this year. He doesn't, because he was always getting fatigued. You could tell, like he would just run out of gas. Look at Brandon Graham. He didn't have to start, and he played pretty well coming off rotation, career high in
Great year.
sacks. So yeah, I mean, a lot of good, like you said, a lot of good young talent. 2019 draft class looking pretty nice.
Hey, let Jalen Carter play 3 downs. Let
So what
Jordan Davis
was
be out
it
there
was
for the first 2, and then pass rush with Cox and Carter.
so it was what 2019 for our D tackles, and what was it 2021 for our offensive tackles?
2021, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was Wirfs and
forget the other ones, but yeah,
Darrisaw,
young guys making names for
Sewell, yeah,
themselves. Good to see.
big time. All right, well, I love the back-to-back big uglies. I think it worked out well.
I'm surprised how I thought we would have similar players, but I didn't think our list would be that identical. Especially Simmons at 3. That I thought you were gonna have him like 6.
I
But
mean, we both had him at 4. I don't know why this is like the surprise of the whole process.
I don't know. But I'm it's I'm glad that I'm not getting the slander on Vita Vea anymore because he's dropped out of your
Well,
rankings. So
again, career year in sacks. Just keep that in mind. The competition just caught up to him.
All right. Well, good talk.
All right. Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you again for listening to the Post-Fades and Cheesesteaks Sports Podcast. Please like, follow, and subscribe on all your major platforms. Follow us on YouTube. Follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Have a great day, and tune in next week.